my podcast series, Formidable Females in Future Flight. I'm a headhunter in this space, and I was inspired to launch this podcast series in order to inspire more women to consider this sector for their own careers. In these special Vertiports editions, I'm meeting with female leaders at the businesses developing the essential ground infrastructure that advanced air mobility will rely upon. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Caryn Moore Lund, Vice President of Government Affairs at Ferrovial Vertiports. Caryn, it is so great to meet you. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Joanne. This is very fun.
Oh, thank you. And first of all, could you tell me a little bit about your background? How did you come to work in this new sector?
Absolutely. Well, probably like many people in the advanced air mobility sector, I don't have a traditional background, right? There's no perfect background. This is such a unique and emerging market where all different types of disciplines and backgrounds are going to be relevant. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to ride this wave. So I worked on Capitol Hill. I was very, very lucky. I lucked into a transportation job early on, right out of college, worked on the transportation committee for 7 years, going from my itty bitty days and did kind of every job you can as you climbed up there. And then went to USDOT and worked in the office of the secretary for 3 years. I was recruited into Lilium in 2020 when I had to Google what Lilium was, what an eVTOL was, but was delighted at the opportunity. So for me, going to Lilium was a significant jump. It was not what I was used to. It was a new technology, private sector, but I was able to join early on in this space, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And the entire time I was at Lilium, I was working very frequently with Ferrovial across their teams, watching them grow and develop, and certainly saw the important need of infrastructure for these new aircraft, which I had been spending so much time on, to create net new mobility. And I was asked to consider coming into Ferrovial earlier this year and joined a couple of months ago. And it's been wonderful. It's been excellent to stay within the industry, but then also take on new opportunities. That I feel like is special, and I feel very fortunate for it because we are such a small community that I think it's kind of easy to feel like there's not a lot of options and places to go, and excited to see as traditional transportation stakeholders like Ferrovial come into the market, that the opportunities for growth and development continue to expand.
For sure. And although you say there's no one background that's right for this sector, actually, if I was to think about what backgrounds might be right to come and join Ferrovial Vertiports, I struggle to think of a background that would be better than yours. I can see how this role really utilises all of your past experience in government and the public sector in an OEM, and now relating that into this exciting infrastructure business. And could you tell me a little bit about your role here? What do you find yourself doing now on a day-to-day basis?
Day to day, there's a significant amount of variety. So we're a global developer. So mornings frequently start with calls with Madrid or my team in the UK. Brad Miller leads us there and is a one-man army. And so anything we can do to support the European team is very important for us to have that alignment time and those hours that overlap for our working day. And then I get to transition to our East Coast partners, maybe meetings on Capitol Hill or with an agency supporting our team at JFK's new Terminal 1 as they think about opportunities to work with governments. And then also, of course, engaging with our strong but mighty team in Dallas, where our headquarters are. And then engaging in community meetings virtually or in person down in Florida, Texas, out in California, as we think about how we can integrate into this. So there's a lot of partnership work where we're checking in with various eVTOL OEMs, making sure that our vertiports are fit for purpose for their unique needs, and then extrapolating that into public policy. So it's a balance between emails, meetings, texting, phone calls, running into people if you're lucky, and then trying to catch up on everything that you didn't do after my kids go to bed at 8 p.m.
Yeah, a familiar story. As for the business itself, I understand that Ferrovial Vertiports is part of Ferrovial Airports, which is part of the wider Ferrovial Group. Could you tell me a bit about how that makes the business unique and what you're doing to pioneer this new sector?
Yes, that's one of the things that attracted me to Ferrovial is that we do have the capacity to deliver on the vision for vertiports. So we have the ability to design, build, finance, operate, and maintain infrastructure. We've done that for 75 years, and we're doing it in the highest, most demand-centric markets. And we know that because for our toll roads, our transitways, rail lines, airports, energy projects that we invest in, we do a really robust demand analysis. And so for vertiports, there's no analog, right? We don't want to just capture existing aviation. We also know that we need to capture routes that currently are too challenging to make. And so maybe they're less likely to be traveled. And so we use a really advanced predictive analytics algorithm to ensure that we are fully understanding how people move in any given region, just like we would if we were trying to understand a managed lane project. This is the aviation version of that, right? Where do people want to go? And how can we provide value and time savings by developing vertiports at those point A's and point B's? So for us, we feel very confident in our understanding of how and where vertiports should be sited in our key markets in South Florida, Central Florida, Texas, New York, New Jersey, and California. And from there, we're able to be very specific in our siting and then identify how airspace integration and community, land use, first and last mile, all come together to ensure that we have a facility that provides that value and time savings. One of the excellent things about Ferrovial is that because we have that multidisciplinary background, we're going to be able to think about this holistically. So first and last mile connectivity, certainly, but then also on the energy side, certainly the electrification of these assets is going to be so important. And having Ferrovial Energy that can help us understand localized generation, solar panels, and other items that can help us electrify the vertiport in a zero carbon way. And then also storage to ensure resiliency and that we're a net benefit to the grid in the surrounding area. So I think that there's wonderful companies doing fantastic things, traditional aviation, new markets in the vertiport space. But I think Ferrovial Vertiports attracted me because it's so unique and that we have this ability to leverage what we know about managing the Queen's Terminal at London Heathrow and downscaling that and trying to figure out Aberdeen Airport, which is under our management, is a significant vertical flight hub to serve the North Sea currently. What lessons can we learn from Aberdeen that we could apply to a facility in New York City? So it's those learnings that we can create greater efficiencies and optimization at the vertiport level.
Brilliant. I really love those parallels and opportunity to learn one thing and then deploy it somewhere else. I feel as though there's real parallels between the evolution of the Ferrovial business and your personal evolution. Growing up, if you like, in slightly more traditional spaces, and then deploying those skills again in a new and evolving industry. I wondered, what do you think are the most important skills in order to succeed in this sector?
I mean, there is such a multidisciplinary need, and that's where the teamworks and the teams you develop, right, are going to be so important, right? No one person can be that Swiss Army knife of every skill necessary. However, the one commonality that I think everyone would need to have is the ability to extrapolate a piece of information, just as you were saying, and apply it to a new problem. And that's what we're doing here, right? We know how airspace for helicopters work. We know how airspace considerations around wake turbulence, for example, for existing propulsion aircraft is treated at the FAA and at other ANSPs. So then we can begin to study that and make recommendations about, for a new type of aircraft, what do we think should be part of the solution set? How can we be helpful on that? And how can we ensure that our facilities reflect those high standards of safety that we see in conventional aviation? And so I think it's really the ability to analogize appropriately discard what isn't relevant, let go of everything that's sort of legacy thinking that doesn't have value currently, but then apply those lessons learned. There's no wisdom in the second kick of the mule, as a boss used to say. And so where can we take all of those prior kicks and apply them to a really efficient facility, an efficient commercial model?
Yeah, I love that description. It's similar to what someone else said once about being grounded in reality with the creativity to imagine a different future. And I know that simultaneously to juggling all of these tasks at work, you're also a busy working mum with two kids who've just gone back to school this week. I wondered, how do you go about keeping on top of that, your broader life on top of this very busy job?
Well, I don't always feel like I'm doing the best job at it, right? I think there's high highs and low lows with children of these ages. Certainly, I put personal things on my Outlook work calendar, right? I have an integrated calendar. Certainly, also have one that I share with my husband. But for me, I think I just have to schedule popsicles on the playground at school at noon today, as if I would a working lunch, and ensure, right, that I'm taking care of everything that I need to prior and after. But building that time is incredibly important. I also think that one of the unique attributes in working in a multinational company, I am the Army of One for us here in DC. This is our DC office in my hall right now. And there are certainly downsides of having work from home and maybe a little more isolation. But at the same time, it allows me to wake up early and take care of lots of meetings or materials for Europe, for example, or stay up late and handle deck development and things like that. And so I think if I'm able to do 55 minutes of work and then do that 5 minutes of folding the laundry or having the conversation where I can sort of click off of work for 5 minutes, I feel like that has dividends at this stage in my children's life, right? Where I can be in and out a little bit more. That's been very helpful for us.
Yeah. It's great to hear how you balance the two things. I hope you don't end up working too many 16-hour days. But hopefully it sounds like the two things are balancing well enough at the moment. And I wondered, as you've progressed your really exciting career and achieved promotions and done so many interesting things, do you think that being female has affected any of the decisions that you've made along the way?
Yes, absolutely. I'm 100% sure I've benefited by having maybe a female boss who saw something of herself in me and took it upon herself to mentor me to a greater level. At the same time, when I was at USDOT, I was there before I had my oldest child, and then after she was born, I came back, and that was a wonderful work experience. But there was an opportunity to go up the ladder within that structure that required me to stay for a 6 p.m. leadership meeting every single night. And I wasn't able to do that with my childcare pickup. I had to be over at the FAA daycare, which was fantastic and wonderful to have something within the office. However, it did close by 6 and I couldn't participate in that meeting. And so I didn't take that position at USDOT. Similarly, there was an opportunity to go back to Capitol Hill recently. Again, that in-person 6 p.m. meeting 5 days a week. And that wasn't something that I can do right now. I think with children my age, if I get home at 7 p.m., I have about 15 minutes with them before bedtime really kicks in. And I need more time with them right now. And so those were opportunities that I did not pursue. I don't think my career could have been any different or better when I look at my friends that did take those positions at USDOT. They are doing fantastic. They have wonderful jobs, very fulfilling. I'm not jealous whatsoever, right? There's no envy. There's no woulda, coulda, shoulda there. I feel that when I make a good choice for my family, that's going to be the most important thing. And my career is the thing that serves my family, not the other way around. And I think that I've been fortunate where, by and large, that's been a good thing, but it's mostly in hindsight, right? It's being able to look back and say that hard decision was the right choice. And that's very helpful now as I continue to make these little hard choices every day between the two to realize, okay, when I made this big hard choice, that ended up working out. We can solve for this together as a family. And let's apply that to missing the first day of school or work, or, there's all these little things that happen for a working mom that we can put into greater perspective when we balance between the two.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And is there any particular science in your decision-making process?
I really like Emily Oster, who's a US statistician, and she wrote Expecting Better, which I read with my first child. And I'm a very budget-driven person. I worked on financial programs in the government, of course. And so I definitely do sort of a cost-benefit analysis on everything. But I do think that it's very easy to underestimate costs, soft costs associated with children. And so I do have to spend a little bit more time and begin to extrapolate, okay, what would this truly mean? And not calamitize and not necessarily presuppose any specific outcome, but step through things and not necessarily take matters on their face value. I also think that when you are writing a check to your nanny every 2 weeks, which is an incredible investment, that's how we see it is. This is an investment in our children to have this member of our family that we are fortunate to have. It puts everything in very stark perspective, right? I can literally quantify. I have no free time. Every ounce of my time is valuable. And I can tell you down to the cent what it costs for me to participate in a meeting or to do a lunch or to work on a project with you. And so it's very analytical. And then you can begin to apply that. And it really helps me deal with any sort of mom guilt or feelings of inadequacy. There's a lot of stay-at-home moms in my community that I love. Their children are always going to be better dressed, have cuter back to school gifts, and participate in more activities. But they don't have to make the same calculation. And so I really try to ground things in what's the time cost, what's the financial cost, and then what's the opportunity cost, and make the decisions from there.
It sounds like there's a real balance of heart and head. I know with any decision that we ever make, either as a mum or at work, there's no right or wrong answer. It's always a very personal decision, but it really sounds like you've been guided by both heart and head and made decisions that have really worked out for you, for your career and for your family. And I'm so delighted to see you thriving in this really exciting job, and also very well done for your recognition this week in eVTOL Insights Most Influential Women in eVTOL.
It was good to be with you there. That was excellent.
Thank you. Well, honestly, I was so happy for you, and you've certainly inspired me. And is there any advice that you would like to give to other women who are considering this career or thinking about pursuing their next promotion in this sector?
Yeah, so I think in this sector in particular, and this is also a mom thing, is embracing incrementalism has been very helpful for me, right? Instead of having expectations that an aircraft is going to get 100% more performative, let's work on getting that battery range 5% better. Or as we think about regulatory approvals, let's celebrate when someone receives special airworthiness certification, not misunderstanding what that means, understanding that that's a step in a larger process, but then celebrating it, learning from it. And I think it's the same thing with children, right? We have no expectation that our children are going to take on a new skill or break a bad habit overnight. And I think by watching my children learn, it's retaught me about how I can grow and change, right? If I can be 5% healthier in any given day, or 5% less screen time, or handle a situation with a challenging colleague a little bit better every day, there's dividends. That's what I expect from our partners on the aircraft or operations side. That's what we have to do to advance a vertiport project, is these little micro steps that are necessary. Having one conversation with a challenging commissioner in any given community, and bringing them back into the fold. That's an investment of time. And we can't look at that and say, okay, done and dusted, we're set, we're going to be able to develop in this community, but we have to do them. And so it's on both sides of my life, on my personal side and professional. Embracing incrementalism is the only way that you can get through. Celebrating the little wins, not over-indexing on them, and getting up the next day and doing it again.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think that is such sound advice for anybody's career and life. It has been such a joy to see you again today. Thank you so much for
Likewise.
making time and taking part in my series. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate it too. Thanks for all you do for us as a community.
Oh, you're very welcome.